Alright, Lies of P have been out for a little bit now, and I have had the chance to play it myself as somebody who isn't super good at the Soulborne franchise, nor general Souls-likes. This game is hard. This game is really hard. Matter of fact, it is so hard that during the first initial release of this game, there was debate on whether or not it was too difficult. Was this game too much? Did it break the Soulsborne community? Well, as somebody who has, as I said, having played a lot of the Soulsborne games and Souls likes, I still suck ass at all of them. And I can tell you, yeah, this game is really, really hard. But it's also a game that has some of the best combat in existence right now. It's a game with a fantastic story and a game that really fucking draws on the aesthetics. It's so pretty throughout the entirety of the game. And I'm not just talking about the graphical style. Like, everybody can go, oh, that's pretty, but like in a more deep, in-depth sense. So I'm gonna talk about how I, as a noob, decided to beat and how I beat the good old Lies of P. For those of you who don't know what Lies of P is the newest and best Souls-like on the block. And a Souls-like is essentially a game that tries to imitate FromSoft's work, and I have a video on it if you wanna watch it. You can click the channel and watch it. But yeah, it's pretty good, and there are a lot of reasons why, and I'm gonna go through a lot of them. But in general, I just want to sort of emphasize that when it comes to Souls-likes, I often find them to, in comparison to FromSoft, be bad. And Lies of P is definitely not that. It is, in my opinion, rivaling that of, the FromSoft titles, because it is really, really that good. Like, it is insanely good. And now there are a lot of reasons why it's good, and one of them is the gameplay of Lies of P. Now, the gameplay of Lies of P is not your typical Souls gameplay. In typical Souls games, you use iframes while dodging, you dodge a lot, and so on. Lies of P decided to go the Sekiro way, or what I have liked to dub the Sekiro Bloodborne way, where it combines the parry from Sekiro with the little health bar thing from Bloodborne, so you are encouraged to always stay aggressive. Now, there are other ways the game does that. So essentially in Lies of P, there are attacks that you physically cannot dodge. You have to parry them, and you have to learn how to parry them, specifically Perfect Block. Perfect Block is essentially a mechanic where if you tap the button right before you're hit, if you parry right before you're hit, then you take almost no damage, and the damage you take you can regain by just attacking the enemy. And it is as powerful as it sounds, but it's also why this game is so hard. Because in a game like Sekiro, you have a parry meter. You don't in Lies of P. And in Lies of P, they generally encourage you to stay really aggressive despite the entire thing with parrying. And they do that specifically through things such as your health flask. So the health flask in Lies of P is basically just like any other Souls, like it's the thing you drink, you get health, whatever, right? But what's super interesting about it is that when it's depleted and you then go to attack an enemy, then it starts to refill itself. So the more you aggressively attack an enemy, the more you get back. So if you, in theory, could keep it going, you could chain the last, health flask indefinitely. You could, in theory, have it running throughout the entire game with just one health flask. Now, the likelihood of you doing that is very low because this game, as I said, is extremely hard. Now, another thing that is different from the usual Souls formula is the weapon system. It's something that's gotten a lot of praise, and I'm sure by this point you are aware of, but I just want to explain it in case. And that is the fact that with weapons in Lies of P, you can assemble and disassemble it. What that means is that when you get a weapon in Lies of P, you can take the blade of that weapon, or the head of the weapon, and attach it to any other weapon or any other handle. That means that you can practically make any combo with any weapon in the game. This allows you to customize your own playstyle to such a degree I have quite literally never seen it in any other game that I can think of anyway. The amount of customization you can have when it comes to just the decision on, do I want to do hammer? Do I want to do wrench with a knife handle? Do I want to do a long sword with a knife handle or anything else? There are so many options that is quite insane, and it's quite fun. It's one of the best mechanics in the game, in my opinion. The one downside there is to it that I don't see mentioned too often is that there is also a minus to them. So if you put the wrong thing on the wrong, handle, like the wrong head on the wrong handle, so you put a great sword on a knife handle, there is a statistical minus that kicks in. It's not that important at all, but it's there and it's mildly weird. I think it might be patched out soon. I kind of hope so. So yeah, that's a thing. Other than that, that's the main things you do in the game, other than, just your usual exploration and doing boss fights and stuff. And the boss fights are fantastic. Only seconded by FromSoft. Like the only company or like games I found that does boss fights better is FromSoft themselves. And that's saying something as to the quality of the boss fights in Lies of P. They are all good, and I highly recommend, if you're playing it, just going through all of them, especially the optional ones. When it comes to boss fights in these games, a lot of it is aesthetics and the looks of them. And I think, again, Lies of P just knocks it out of the park here. Anywhere from some of the final fights to the earliest fights, they're all good looking, they're all scary. A good example of a boss I feel like is really intimidating, and you meet him about the middle way through the game, like halfway, is the king puppet and Romeo. Romeo is essentially his second phase, but he is super fucking intimidating, and he is grotesque looking, and I absolutely love it. Because you see, whereas most Souls, like, they kind of keep a story hidden away to the backside, and in general, unlike Elden Ring, they kind of suck the stories that are in the Souls-like. So, and again, I'm going to point to Remnant 2 as being a good example of a story that I feel like kind of... it didn't do well in comparison to the first one, in my opinion. And I did beat it all to Remnant 2. But yeah, lore-wise, they usually kind of and whatever. But Lies of P, one who wears its story on its sleeve. It doesn't mind, just telling the story as it is. But on top of that, and in my opinion, more importantly than that, the lore behind it is also really good. So you can read into the story and get even more good story, or you can just not do that and still have a good story and understand what's going on. And that's something a lot of these games kind of fail at, because often they try to imitate Dark Souls or Elden Ring, which doesn't do that. They don't wear the stories on the sleeve, they're sort of hidden away, but they're still fantastic and well worth uncovering. And it's just such a shame to see so many games try to hide the stories away, and then, they turn out to suck. Whereas Lies of P doesn't hide the story away that much. Like, I had a general understanding of everything that was going on throughout the entirety of the game, and to give you a quick summarizing of, like, the lore of Lies of P, I guess. It's honestly fairly simple. You are in the city called Krat that has economical prosperity due to puppets, which are essentially machines that are like human-like. They can do a lot of different things in hard labor and whatnot, so they increase production. And all of a sudden, without really any explanation, these puppets have what is known as the frenzy, where they started killing people and murdering innocent civilians and everything. And that is shown in the game really well. By one, just having most lights being out, like blockaded, barricaded, everything looks like it's been under like war, essentially. And what they also do is the bands of humans that are left alive are now known as stalkers. They like roam the street and kill puppets. And they obviously hate puppets. So what they do is that they hang them up and like scribble text over their bodies and things like that. Like, it's so good. It is so good. And here's the thing. I wouldn't really talk about that too much if it didn't add into the overall feel of the game. But the aesthetic, while yes, it does have good graphics, and I feel like that's worth mentioning, it's not everything. The aesthetical quality of everything is just so fucking cool. The way that the enemies never look like each other. There's a lot of variety in the enemies. There's a lot of different attack patterns and clothing and areas you explore. The areas never really feel similar. It's not like you're going through city number 1 and then to city number 2 to city number 3. They're all sort of different things about them. They all have different quirks. Maybe it's in the music, maybe it's in the way that the street looks. But it never overstays its welcome, and I think that's super important because a lot of games tend to do that. They tend to have these areas that start out as being really cool, but eventually as you just rerun the areas, they get samey and they start feeling old and boring. And Lies of P doesn't do that, and I think that's super cool, and I think that's super important. Now, like I've said, I really like Lies of P. I think there's been a lot of things about Lies of P that's just fantastic. One more is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack in Lies of P is absolutely popping throughout practically all of it. I'll link to it down in the description. If you want to check that out, you have the availability to. And lastly, I want to end up just giving some tips as to how I played the game as somebody who isn't really good at these games, and how you can make the game a little bit easier on yourself if you're struggling. Number one for me, and definitely like the biggest thing, would be use your consumables and throwables. Especially throwables in Lies of P are really good. I'm gonna play a clip of it right here. For a little backstory before we just watch the clip, this is a boss I've been stuck on for 2 days at this point, like full actual days, albeit I have been to school and stuff like that meanwhile. But I've been stuck on this boss, and I decided to listen to the community and just attempt to use throwables. This is the result I had there. Normally, for the record as well, I don't use like an audio recorder. I don't record my microphone while I'm playing. I had just come off recording something, and then I went in to play a little bit, and I got this clear of the boss.
Bring it on. You ain't seen nothing like my brother.
5, 8.
It's my turn. Don't get extra points for fighting fair.
Survive and win. That's
What? 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 Holy fuck!
This puppet's crazy.
What? No way! No way! What the fuck? What? That is so dumb! What the fuck? What?
damn you. You'll pay for that.
Now, with that clip in mind, this is why I think consumables are so good. They're just incredibly strong for almost all bosses within the game. There's only one exception, which I won't spoil, but in there they are also good. They're just not broken. And other than that, use the Spectre if you want to in cant and everything. The Spectre is a fine addition. He usually dies before the second phase of a boss fight. And he's just in general a really nice help to have if you're struggling. Don't limit yourself is what I'm trying to say, to attempt to appear better or whatever. Like, some people are purists and only go in using their melee builds in these games, and while I think that's okay, I'm just saying do whatever you want to, have fun with it. If you enjoy just going in 1,000 times and not using consumables, only swinging your sword, then honestly, more respect to you. If you're like me and you don't mind using specters and using this and this, go for it. I think that's also completely okay. Just enjoy yourself at the end of the day is what I'm trying to say. And other than that, I think that's all I have to say about this game. I really enjoyed Lies of P. I think it's awesome to have a game that takes the Pinocchio like story up like this does. I've always been a sucker for, you know, steampunk aesthetics, and Lies of P has that. It has it in every way, and I think that's really nice. I think Lies of P is also one of those games that, while having the aesthetic, also manages to be more than just aesthetic. Like, it's also really just good game, straight up. And other than that, I don't have very much to say. There's a link to the soundtrack in the description, like I mentioned. If you're interested in that, check it out. Other than that, you know, enjoy the game if you want to. I played it through Game Pass. It is on there if you want to play through that. If you don't, that's also okay. And yeah, that's about it. I'll catch you all later.